All right, everybody, welcome back. Ellis Cannon, PittsburghSportsReport.com, EllisCannon.com. We're coming at you from the Dallas Sheraton, the NFL media headquarters, all through the course of the week. Joining me right now, Pete Prisco. Consider him one of, if not the best NFL writer around the league. I've enjoyed talking to him through the years when I was at the Steeler Network broadcast, and of course, you could check all his work out with CBSSports.com. Pete, thanks so much.
Sure, nice to be here.
All right, now, Pete, I got to tell you what, we were just referencing the fact we have reality stars walking around that are famous for abs, and as you point out, the situation seems like a nice enough kid. No problem with that. He's got a little fame and so forth. But I got to tell you, I'm starving a little bit to talk some football for a couple of minutes. I don't know about you. What do you make of this game?
Well, I think it's a bad matchup for the Steelers, I'll be honest with you. If you look over the course of the last couple of years, the teams that have beat them are teams where the quarterback gets the ball out of his hands, gets matchups in the secondary. Well, the Packers' MO is to line up, get matchups in the secondary, and get the ball out of Rodgers' hands. So I think from that standpoint, it's a bad matchup. But I also don't think that the Steelers are going to have problems throwing the football on the other end either. I think even though the Packers' corners are good, I think they'll have some success down the field.
That's interesting. I brought up on last night's show, we do 9 Eastern, that, in fact, if you look at it, the Packers gave up actually one more touchdown pass than the Steelers. They got 30 picks on the season, but you never would have thought that, particularly in Pittsburgh, because they were getting hammered all the time as a defensive secondary. They've given up actually less touchdowns, so maybe there's a play or two there. I think you're right. Rodgers gets rid of it fast. He's tough. He's accurate, and those guys have killed Pittsburgh before. However, what about the experience stuff? The Steelers have dozens of players that have been on this stage before. There's 3, including a former Steeler practice squad player for Green Bay. Do you make much of that?
No, because I think once the ball's kicked off, all the pregame stuff goes out the window, all the experience factor goes out the window. I mean, you might have a little nerves, but anybody who's played sports knows if there's a big game, you have a little bit of nerves, and then once you play, once you're hit, it's just another game. So I think all that stuff goes out the window.
I want to ask you about the coaches. Mike Tomlin doesn't get any love at all for Coach of the Year. I have to tell you, as you might imagine, that's not been well received in Pittsburgh. And just looking at it objectively, to not get votes, that seems to be crazy, considering what he was dealing with going back to March and beyond. What do you make of Mike Tomlin?
I think Mike Tomlin's done a great job, I'll be honest with you. I think, he inherited a darn good football team. Don't get me wrong.
Does that work against him?
Probably, but he kept it going. When you go 3-1 without Ben early in the season and what he did, I think Mike deserves a lot of credit. Now, I vote on that. I think part of the problem is we vote early on that. I mean, those votes are in by, right at the end of the season, and so you don't let the season play out. I voted. I'm the one guy who voted for Mike Smith in Atlanta because at the time they had the best record in the conference. A lot of people didn't expect that to happen, but they went out in their first playoff game. If I had to do it all over again, I might vote for Mike Tomlin. So I think we rushed the vote, and that's why he doesn't get the vote.
Talk about Mike McCarthy. He's a Pittsburgh guy through and through, but he runs a non-Pittsburgh type of offense and team in some respects, at least with respect to the pass game.
Well, really when you look at both teams, they're not Pittsburgh type teams. Right. The Steelers are 18th in yards per carry rushing the football this year. So I do believe that McCarthy is a pass-first guy, which is not what you would expect from a Pittsburgh guy, but it's also the right way to win now. All the rules favor the passing game, so why not adapt to it and throw the football? I think you throw to score, you run to win. Even when the Steelers won with Ben that first year, they threw the ball early in those games and then ran it late. And the success was there. Then when they won a couple years ago, they were not a good rushing team. They threw the football. It's a throwing league now.
All right, one last thing. You touched on it earlier about Aaron Rodgers. I spent, I think, 3 days talking to 30 Steelers, at least half of which we discussed the whole offense. These wide receivers are interchangeable. They do a lot of different things. They're a headache. But break down their offense a little bit more for us.
Well, it's a lot of quick throws, ball out. They're a great screen team. I think their running game kind of comes off of their passing game. They're not an overpowering offensive line. They won't line up and smack you and run you off the ball, which is why I think they're going to throw the ball early and often and dictate tempo. So it's a quick, get the ball out of your hand, West Coast kind of offense.
And defensively, it seems like they feed off playmakers like the Steelers do, particularly at linebacker. They're 3-4. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of similarities.
Yeah, there's no doubt, but they do a little more wrinkles in their 3-4, I think, which is, they've adapted it a little bit. Dom's very good at what he does. And the other thing is that the Steelers they have the corners. I mean, Trayvon Williams and Sam Shields are fast cover corners, and Charles Woodson's still a darn good football player, and they move him around. He's kind of the X factor in the entire game.
What do you make of this scene? You cover the league. You're around it every week, wherever you are. Of course, you have a wonderful program, radio, and Jacksonville, but business has picked up here this week.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, the league is as popular as ever. Everybody's making money, which is why there will not be a strike.
That's exactly right. All right, Pete Prisco, again, the best NFL writer there is, CBSSports.com. We enjoyed the time. Pete, we enjoyed it. You got to sign our Pittsburgh Sports Report, new tradition. All right, thanks a lot.